OU Media Day. So we got thoughts as fall camp starts on Thursday, and we got to prepare ourselves for that and what's going to go down in about 30-something days as we prepare for the college football season. So thank y'all for pulling up here to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. We've got my boy Coop on the line as well. We're going to dive into some of the thoughts and notes that we saw from Media Day, the things that jumped out to us, just so you all know what's coming up. But before we do that, I want to say this. Coach Brent Venables announced that his wife, Julie Venables, was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had surgery on Friday. And so we want to lift him and her and the entire family up in prayer. Sooner Nation, make sure you do your thing. Add a special word in for the Venables family. As you know, they're going through this trying time. But Coach Venables said it in the presser. She's tough. She's a honey badger. She's going to fight this and she's going to kick its butt. And so all of us will be praying for it. We know it's going to go down. So let's talk about Media Days and what Coach Venables said about the team as well. So, of course, OU Media Days, and we're going to dive into it. We got Coop here, as usual, on the channel. Coop, when I was going through it, of course, this wasn't truly televised. So we had to go on YouTube and go find all the quotes. But, of course, there were Twitter archives all day long diving into what was going on. And so we wanted to come here and kind of analyze some of the thoughts from the coaches as we prepare for the season. Man, we are 2 days away from kickoff. How you feeling about that, Coop?
The 32 days part, because the 32 days part, it's every single day. In my big boy job, we sell college football on ABC, and so the pressure is on, especially with yours truly carrying the biggest sports budget. But you heard a different tone than you did last year. It's kind of like when I talk to my kids, like I'm saying something to them and they're hearing what they want to hear. I say, if you do X, Y, Z, then you're going to get this. All they hear is you're going to get this. And I'm wondering if last year during Media Days, we as OU fans didn't have some of that in us. We just heard, oh, Brent Venables is coming in. He's going to bippity boppity boo. And our defense is going to be great. And our offense is not going to miss a beat, because it hasn't since Trevor Knight was at the helm. So I like the tone of everything. And getting to know this coaching staff, I bring it up all the time, like with the kids, we're not just, recruiting phenomenal athletes. We're recruiting phenomenal young men. And you hear this coaching staff, and bro, I wish I could knock off 20 years and, get Schmitty Belt too, because these coaches, they make you want to fight for them.
Yeah, one of my favorite comments that I saw in the Discord. So for those that don't know, we got a Discord. Link is in the description below. Love for you to come hang out with us. We're going to start talking more ball as we're growing. We almost got about 30 people in there. So we would love to get you in there to start really, having some conversation and debate. But one of my favorite comments is that everybody's smiling until they get Schmitty. Did they get Schmittified, or they got to go see Schmitty? And I'm just like, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, he's known for working you, but the players love him. They adore him. They respect him. And it's not that he just abuses them with the weight room, but they all feel like they've grown and gained something from him. So let's jump right into some of these quotes. So first off, I think this is the one that hit the internet the hardest. There was two things. The first one was Jeff Lebby was talking about the offensive line. And so, of course, I'm going to put this up here so you all can see it. And this is his line. And this is from Josh Helmer from the ref, from KREF. Left tackle, Walter Rouse. Left guard, we don't know. Center Andrew Rhyme. Right guard, McKay Matower, and right tackle, Tyler Guyton. So right now, that is what the depth chart is looking like potentially. And then you'll have Savion Byrd, you'll have Caleb Schaefer, Troy Everett, all of them rotating through. So, Coop, when you see that, what jumped out to you?
Nothing jumped out at all. Right. So you've got Walter Rouse coming in from Stanford. He had the shoulder in the off season. Right. He's rocking and ready to go at the end of spring. He's been full participant. This guy, Stanford, right? That means he's a cerebral player. He's probably not had the coaching, and that's a common recurring motif that I heard a lot today was a lot of these guys didn't, felt like they didn't really ever get taught the proper techniques. And you heard a lot about, catching in the details. And so Walter Rouse is a guy. Now, he's not going to be an Orlando Brown or a Jamal Brown, Trent Williams type of a guy. But, he does have that Phil Loadholt. He does have that type of he's going to be a very, very solid guy. Fifth-year senior. That is great. Andrew Rame, this is his first full off season without having any injury bugs. So hopefully Schmidt has got him, because he just needs the mean streak. He's got the know-how. He's got the footwork. He's got technique. He just has to go out and actually just put it. If you listen to Gabe and Teddy on the Oklahoma Breakdown, they talk about it all the time. Gabe is one that I would listen to over anybody on the offensive line. And he just says he wants to see Rame just actually put that nasty streak in himself and take himself to the next level. Matauer, he is this year's scapegoat, and he is in there because he can trust him the most. And until somebody goes and takes that job from him, he's going to stay there. He did not have a bad bowl game. He has had his ups and he's had his downs. He kind of is what he is. But again, it's another system, another year in the system, another year in Levy's offense. And then we're looking at a potential first-round draft pick in Tyler Guyton. So really that left guard spot is we need someone to come take that job. You saw the pictures of Savion Byrd the other day, and everybody's like, he's gained all that weight back. That was an issue for him. But you have open competition. Mm-hmm. Beanball likes to rotate guys in. And so, to have 4 of the 5 spots back, OU led the league in rushing last year. And I don't expect for that to change, especially with the another year for Javante Barnes looking monstrous. And, Sawchuk, Caleb Hicks, Dalen Smothers, et cetera.
Yeah, no. So what jumped out to me on this is the Matauer starting at right guard. And everything you said is, of course, correct. And a few people, of course, had their complaints. And Matauer was up and down last season, but at the same time, he was also hurt most of the season. And Coach Venables mentioned this. He said, I think him or Levy, one of the two mentioned this, that we're going to see a different version of him because he's fully healthy now. Like, he's actually ready to go. Walter Rouse is ready to go as well. I see a little Anton Harrison out of him. I could see him coming in, going to that spot, and potentially getting himself drafted in a high position. Beadenbo does that. He develops you properly. NFL scouts know that. They look at Beadenbo for his linemen because of that specifically. So keep an eye out for that portion of it. And the last thing, one thing you also point out with Rhyme, he needs to get the nasty streak that everybody talks about. But Savion Byrd. Now, Savion is one that his weight's up, but it looks like he's not at the weight they want him to be. Like, he didn't have enough weight. Like, he needs to get more weight. Now, meaning, this is what this means. Like, we talked about how he had a lot of weight and it wasn't good weight. They trimmed him and it's back up, but it's not at the muscular weight that they want long term. And Beadenbo mentioned that. He said that he's extremely talented and someone they hope they can rely on this coming year. So what it sounds like really is that he had a really big fall. He went up. He got himself stronger. He trimmed up. He's gotten himself into a better shape. I guess put it that way. But when I saw the pictures of the dude, I'm just like, oh wow, he's a big boy. Because I was like, man, that's Tyler. No, that's not Guyton. Guyton's up there. So yeah, it's one of those that we're expecting them definitely to have a big year on this line, especially returning all of these starters. And so I think Caleb Schaefer, I heard that he had a really good spring and summer, and they're expecting him to really contribute. But yeah, I think the good thing though is that the line is for the most part established. Now all we got to do is fill the holes and make sure the rotations are good. And I think we'll be fine because we were really good and run last year with everybody we had. Now we lost Wanye and we've lost Anton Harrison, but I think Guyton. I've said this before. Guyton's a first rounder, period. And if he continues to do what he's doing, he's a first rounder. He's got the technique. He's got the skill. And so I'm excited about that. I like seeing that Levy talked about that. And so going down into more stuff that we heard from our coach, Jeff Levy, he talked about the wide receiver room, in which we'll talk about that with Emmett Jones in just a moment. But the last big thing came out of him is that he thinks we're in a lot better place than we were a year ago. And if you noticed it, Venables at the exact same thing for the most part. Venables has exerted so much confidence in his conferences the last like couple weeks, couple months since the season's been over, since going through spring. He's sounds so confident now in comparison to what he did when he first came in. What do you take on that in Venables and his mindset?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, Brent is not going to ever cheat you on the lines. It's not the one-liners that we were used to from Bob and Lincoln. Everybody says, "Hey, we said welcome Brent Venables," and an hour later he finishes his first sentence. And so, but he does. He sounds so much more confident. How do you display confidence in your team, but still instill that that drive to still compete and become better? Because again, this is our out of conference season, to be honest. As we get ready for the SEC, and so you hear him talking about just the progress in the defense, and he says we're not there yet, and it sounds like where last year a lot of his comments were, we've got to get in here and we're going to find out who's doing what. Well, now, we talked about Danny Stutzman leading player led, walk through some practices.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about, guys just having athletic talent out the wazoo, but not knowing what to do. These guys now know what to do. And now it's not even just saying you heard them talk about, and we'll get into it, like Robert Spears Jennings or Jaden Rowe, guys with Jared Kanek, guys with just this massive athletic talent. But how do you make sure that you aim that gun in the right area? Because, if you don't hit the target at all, then, that people came to see a bullseye. They didn't come to see you blow the heck out of the top right corner where the tack is holding up the target. So you hear a lot more, but then you know that he now sees it coming together, and you can kind of see that twinkle in his eye to where he knows that if we get to where I think we can get to, I'm going to be happy. And this is still, I mean, with all due respect to, some of the guys that are newer, he talked about that, there was a question about first year and second year players and how much, do you want to see them bring an impact? And he says, well, I expect them to be in the 2 deep right now. And so we want to see this defense get better. The defensive line, we've talked about this quite a bit. You just need to see those guys just develop the ability to hold their own and to make the occasional play, not just get blown out. And Brent talked about that a little bit too, about guys just getting blown out and blown off their assignment. So you hear so much more confidence, but then you also, like I said, you see that thought process where he's like, we're almost there.
Yeah.
There.
That's what got
bring
me.
Up that quote again.
That is what got me, is that you can tell that he's like, we're there. We're where we need to be competitive. And if we execute, we will be competitive, and we will be at a competitive rate of competing for hardware. So let's jump into Coach Jones. So, of course, Lebby mentioned and talked about Nick Anderson, who's healthier than he's ever been since he's been there. So, of course, wide receiver, we're excited. That's beautiful to hear Nick Anderson's healthy, because, that was the unfortunate thing with his brother Rodney, was injury issues. And now we're stoked that we've got him healthy. That means that him and Farooq can do some things. So, speaking of Farooq, Emmett Jones walked up there, and he was talking about Jalil Farooq, and he mentioned that Jalil Farooq feels like a Percy Harvin comparison. They'd be able to leverage him in that capacity. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think, and Coop, I'm going to pass to you on this. I told y'all that Jalil Farooq felt like a Peter Warrick type. So if you're old school, you know Peter Warrick and how he was at Florida State. I feel like we can leverage him in that capacity. Throw him in the punts, kick returns. You can throw him. You can put him in the backfield. You can put him out there in slot. Put him out there exit. You can just move him around. He's one of those gadget players that nowadays in the NFL is leveraged, like your Deebo Samuel type. That's very common. It's not something that's uncommon. So if he can be gadgety like that and be super effective, like I can expect, dude, that's what we need. And that's, of course, wide receiver 1. The question is going to be number 2. What did you think about that comparison with Percy Harvin?
I want to pull out, mentioned it earlier. I want to pull out the spot to where, he says he jumps Farouk's stuff quite often. And he says they want to be coached hard. And, you brought up Schmitty earlier, that this team actually wants to be coached hard. And I won't take shots at ballerina strength and conditioning or anything like that in the past, but we've got when he's talking to Jalil and he says, "I want to teach you the technique. I'm going to teach you how to play the position." Farouk's verbiage was, nobody's ever really taught me. They just told me to go use my athleticism within the system. Well, that's why we saw him disappear so many times, because he didn't. I mean, he's not even learning how to play wide receiver at the collegiate level until now. Emmett Jones is here. So that's awesome. But, with the Percy Harvin, that he's a guy that you could line up in the backfield. He's a guy that he was a threat even when he didn't have his number called, because somebody has their eye on him. Either you have a fast, strong side linebacker, or you have a safety dedicated to him. Well, that takes somebody out. And now all of a sudden you are gaining back the advantage on offense. Nick Anderson being healthy. I was watching the other night. I mean, I think that you and I were texting back and forth. I was watching Rodney Anderson highlights the other night, and it absolutely kills me to watch that guy go through so much, because he was an absolute freak of nature in his second half of that last season. When we lost to Georgia, I mean, he just was he was the best running back on the field, and that was Sony Michel and Nick Chubb on there too. And he was the guy that ran for 200 plus. So Nick, he's big, he's strong. They showed the photo, and the guy, if he can step up and be an outside threat, that's awesome. Gavin Freeman talk was terrific. I don't really think a lot of people were giving Parker an issue, and I know Eddie Radosevich was right there with him too. There were 10 other reporters with mics out. I don't, the whole thing with Emmett, he was just basically saying that, Gavin Freeman shouldn't have really even been here if things would have been handled correctly. Right. So I think it was more of so I'm happy that I was the benefactor of that situation. So if people are going to want to villainize Oklahoma, they're always going to do it. Fans don't need to dig for stuff. Just wait. It's going to come.
Right.
But hearing Gavin Freeman, as a perfect fit, the guy is a baller and he's a playmaker. Ending out with Stoops. He was working out with Danny Amendola, and that is who you see when you see Drake Stoops, is that New England Patriots slot receiver, do everything all over the middle. But even Drake's bulked up a little bit, and he's not done. Somebody asked him recently about if he was going to go into coaching, and he kind of was like, whoa, I got a lot more football in me. So I expect that. And the last guy, Jaquez Petaway, he said, we're going to love Jaquez Petaway. And, we've seen the Durham, and we've brought this up in the past, is when you see Caden Durham posting those state meet, times and boards up showing the winners, you always see Petaway right back there behind him. I mean, he's got some burners too.
Yeah, no, he does. And Jaquez Petaway, the way the rumors is going is that we're expecting to see him this season. And then between him and Brennan Thompson, nobody knows who's faster. And that, to me, is telling enough that I need to know about just how good Petaway is going to be, because Brennan is a burner. He really is. And it's funny, everybody was picking on him about the transferring from Texas to Oklahoma, and he basically said, yeah, that was the right move for me, and I'm happy to be here, and I love being here in Oklahoma. And so he's ready for the competition, and he's ready to go make it happen. And so adding Petaway and then Brennan Thompson out there doing what it's going to be, man, it's be excited. And one quote to wrap it up that I love that we got out of Emmett Jones before we jump right here to the running backs real quick and then move to the defense. Emmett talked about being wildly successful for the Sooners, and he's like, I feel like I can recruit against anybody with this logo, and even talked about how he's here to help Coach Venables win some trophies. Yeah, and you saw with the non-commits he's got so far. I'm hearing he maybe got a 10th coming. So, yeah, Emmett Jones is putting in work like he's supposed to. Okay.
100%.
Let's look at DeMarco Murray in the running back room. This one was another big one. DeMarco Murray talked to us about Caleb Hicks. One of the best summers he's ever seen for a freshman. Woo-wee! That means competition's happening, as well as Javonte Barnes is ready to go for fall ball after having that foot surgery. Talk to me, Coop. Caleb Hicks, man.
And this is plain and simple. DeMarco is not a, you there was a question about the bowl game. Hey, how do you build off the bowl game? And DeMarco clapped back at that pretty quickly, and it was just like, we're not. That's done. It's over in the past. Like, congratulations, they did it one time. Now we need to see them become complete running backs. The stuff with Caleb Hicks, that's a guy who will probably be forgotten in that recruiting class. But that guy can put some guys on their back. So those three right there. I got a fly going in my face. That's fun. And then you throw in Dalen Smothers. For those who don't remember, Dalen Smothers didn't play senior ball. Like, he didn't play his senior year. Yep. He had an injury. He's still working back from that. But again, that room is going to be loaded. It's going to continue to be loaded. And DeMarco knows that with that many people, you can press them and you can get them to achieve a greatness that they didn't think that they could go to. And so that might be one of the strengths of the team. And again, if that is the case and those guys do their complete jobs, you've got the wide receivers having more opportunities downfield, but then they also have to get out there and block. And so you're going to see a symbiotic relationship between the wide receiver team blocking on the edge for the running backs, and the running backs opening up holes and being available to open up space for those wide receivers. And so that's a good relationship. I mean, if you listen to those Emmett Jones and DeMarco Murray, again, tell me that you don't want to, take some years off your life and go back there and fight and play for them.
I want to run through a wall right now. I don't even care about, being eligible to play. I don't need to play. I just want to run through the wall for them. So, yeah, that's the offensive side of the ball, man. We've got a lot more content coming down to talk about that. There's so much that came from the media days that I'm pretty excited about. So, Coop, thank you as usual for pulling up. Now let's talk about the defensive side, Rule, and jump into some of these quotes. So let's start off with the one position. You know what? I'm not going to even talk about D-line first. We're going to talk about this. Linebackers. Ted Roof was up there chopping it up. Shocker for you all. This is a stock I think you all should go ahead and spend your money on. Connor Neer. Yeah, the D2 linebacker we got in. Heard that with his maturity and experience, woo-wee, he's a run stuffer that could see a lot of playing time. But all the other guys like Jaron Canick has come a long way. Kobe McKenzie as well, expecting to see some time with him. Stutzman, he's on the Nagorski watch list. It just came down the line. Coop, what you think about us seeing a lot of Connor Neer?
So, coming from D2, I mean, that's the knock on him. If this guy transferred in from Penn State or Minnesota or Wisconsin or something like that, Arizona State, nobody would shake a head at that. I think that the massive Teddy Lehman comparisons to Canick early make everybody think that if he's not on the field, then it's going to be a loss. But again, it's about trust. And Brent Venables, more than probably any other linebacker, specialist, asks a lot out of that position group. You heard it from Emmett Jones. He likes to run the two plays for receivers and switch out receivers because he's got a loaded room. They've got a loaded room. We don't even talk about the freshman guys coming in, Lewis Carter and Phil Picciotti, those guys coming in and doing work right there. So I'm excited about Connor Neer. If what I want as a fan and what I want as an analyst sometimes aren't, always aligned, but who I trust as both is Brent Venables.
Same. And if this is a player that Brent Venables wanted, that's exactly what my thought process is. There's a reason. I mean, we've seen the linebackers that this man has produced. They talked, both Venables as well as Roof talked very high on Jaron Canick. The mechanic is what I call him. We called him here on the show a while back. Because the dude can be a Swiss Army knife and go out there. And this is his first time playing linebacker. So this is only year 2. And he started off at the highest level. And so, at a very high level. Let me correct myself. Not the highest NFL, but he's right there. He's learning it. And so because he's learning it, you can't expect him to start because you don't want him running really, really fast to the wrong spots all the time. But he's getting there. I think that you should expect to see a lot of Canick because I expect that he's going to get a lot of playing time. But It's come a long way. That's the biggest thing about him is that he's learning the defense and he's being able to help orchestrate it himself. So there's a chance you'll see a lot of him and Stutzman together. A chance you'll see a lot of him and Connor Neer. You're definitely going to see some Kobe McKenzie in there, and all the young guys are going to really get themselves prepared to take over the league also. So, yeah, we've got some talent at the linebacker spot, and I know that Coach Ted Roof is putting in work, especially with the new grad assistant that came through from Clemson. He's going to definitely be helping a lot there. And, all right, let's go into the secondary real quick. Jay Valai, of course, talked about our boy Jacoby Johnson from Mustang. He's one of those players that when I saw him play, I was like, what side of the ball is he going to be on? Because he was that talented. Basketball player as well as football player. He played wide receiver, secondary corner. I mean, he could be in the quarterback. He has the ability to be in the Percy Harvin conversation too because of his skill set, but he's also like 6'2", 6'3", and he's a monster. And so Jay Valai says that Jacoby Johnson is working on the defensive side of the ball right now. And he jokingly said that he had to play rock, paper, scissors with the offensive staff to get him on defense, saying he's one of the best athletes they've ever seen. Goodness. Of course we expect that to be. Coop, what you think about that?
I mean, we made the comment a little bit in the past that in that All-American, Under Armour All-American game, there were a lot of guys out there that we were wanting to see. And he showed out just as well as pretty much anybody else. I mean, his name was popping up quite a bit. With that size and that capability, again, it's about learning the position. Valai, he talked about Woody Washington. He said, listen, this ain't a democracy. It's a dictatorship. He's like, in my room, I run this room, and I want you to say it with your chest. And he kept on saying, say it with your chest, dropping a little Kevin Hart on us. And so when he was saying that, it was all about, I want you doing the details, because if you do it with intensity and you pay attention to the details and you're engaged and you're leading the team in the film room, then you're going to do it on the practice field, and then you're going to do it in the game. And he says, you got to go out there and compete. Then he talks about Gentry and just the length and the body build that Gentry Williams has. That's another Tulsa kid, and I'm extremely excited to see Gentry. Talked about Kendall Dolby coming out of JUCO and what he can offer from a toughness aspect. And, he's put in a good spring or a good summer. You get into Josiah Wagner and Makari Vickers. Like, again, you're seeing the stuff with this team to where the competitive depth, that means that there's people at multiple levels who could step in and contribute without a fall off. And now that these guys are being coached not only by the coaches, but by the players who now understand the system, they understand, no, listen, you do need to be those 2 inches over there. Don't make that mistake. I made that mistake. Don't do that. And so you see Jay Valai, he is going to be one of those guys who we could shut down. If you remember that 2001 Cotton Bowl against Arkansas, where we allowed like 75 yards, yep. Jay Valai would still find some way to find opportunities for improvement in those deals. And so you've got the 5-game ramp up, and these guys are going to have some fun in these first 5 games. Is it going to be the complete picture game one? Probably not, but you're going to start seeing, oh, wow.
Nope, you're right. That's exactly what I'm thinking as well. All right. The Gentry Williams one was very interesting because I got a message from a buddy that likes to pay attention to the depth charts and stuff and really big on the positions. And he was like, hey, man, I've heard that there's a lot of stock need to be purchased in Gentry Williams to the point of you can see him on the other side of Woody Washington. And if that's the case, yeah, he's everything and more that we expected out of an athlete coming to the school. BA, stand up. Y'all got another great one out there, and I can totally see Gentry taking that spot because, yeah, he's wildly talented. And then Josiah Wagner, that he was also mentioned in the conversation because of how much of a thumper he is. And they're like, yeah, he's one player to keep your eyes on. Why? Because he is talented. And so buy your stock on Josiah Wagner because he's definitely one to keep an eye out for. All right, let's jump lastly into the key spot everybody cares about the most, defensive line. Miguel Chavis as well as Todd Bates was talking, and here's one from Todd Bates. On the defensive line, putting in weight this summer. When he came to Oklahoma, he had one player 300 pounds. Now they've got, 8? He's like, having multiple 300 pounders is what you need to win this year, but also where we're going next year. What's your thoughts on all these 300 pounders on the team that we're actually showing out with?
Um, Again, we need this defensive line to become something. And you see the stuff coming out on Twitter and top defensive lines, and we're not going to be mentioned in any of those. But the individual pieces, the Grayson Halton, him going from 260 close to 300, Jonah Lalau moving outside, moving down to the defensive tackle, and just becoming a sponge, taking him to Big 12 media days. That tells you everything you need to know about expectations. Also, the leadership that he shows. DeJoun Terry, in the middle too. This defensive line has everything in front of them. They are not going to be held back by anything. They have everything in front of them to be a wow point on this team.
Yeah.
If they don't, it doesn't matter how good Woody and Gentry are. It doesn't matter how good Desan McCullough is, or Justin Harrington, Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, anybody, Reggie Pearson. None of that matters if the quarterback's got 45 days back there to complete a pass.
Yeah.
The only quarterback. And I'm gonna go low for the belt. The only quarterback I'm not worried about at all this year is Hunter Decker. But
wow, he did.
I did that. Sorry. But this defensive line has a lot of capability. You hear a lot of R. Mason Thomas by the stock that is hitting up. We did the interview with our boy Kamori Moore, and he said by the stock on Grayson Halton too. You bring in Bothroyd, PJ Adebaware, and we've got talent everywhere. We've got guys now who are willing to contribute and do this. So now it's time for those guys to go out. And, if I am Mikael Chavis, if I'm Todd Bates, if I'm Brent Venables, Ted Roof, I'm taking those guys in every chance and say, listen, nobody expects anything out of you. People are going to come in here and they're going to think that they're going to punk you. You've got an opportunity to show them that new day, new game, new team, new OU.
Yeah, exactly. And Coach Venables was high on DeJoun Terry, who came from Tennessee, the 6'3", 320-pound D lineman. Everybody's like, yeah, these are players we need. We got them. Unfortunately, we've got injuries with like Phil Paia and Jacob Lacey's dealing with blood clots. Similar injury that Jalen Redmond was dealing with back in 2018. So just FYI, this is not an uncommon thing in football itself. But yeah, you're seeing some, we're getting healthier overall. We're getting more players, and Laulu is moving closer to 300. Gillum is at 300. We've got a lot of big boys on this line. Devon Sears has been showing a lot of promise. There was a lot of praise behind the big boys. Isaiah Coe's over 300. You know what I'm saying? Like they came in here.
We forget about Isaiah Coe.
Jordan Kelly's over 3. So we had a lot of 300. There's now that we didn't have before. So this defensive line is going to look different. This is a reason why this staff is so ecstatic. This is the reason why this staff is pointing this stuff out, is because we have a difference in this defensive line that we didn't have before. These boys are big and they're solid. And then so talking edges before we wrap this bad boy up, you've got R. Mason Thomas got a lot of praise from Miguel Chavis, and talking about his maturity and how he's playing. What do you think about R. Mason Thomas? You think we're going to see a lot of him on the field this year?
By the stock.
Yeah.
If you have defensive tackles who are eating up blocks and are keeping the linebackers clean, and you have to scheme out the defensive tackles on the inside, you get the big boys on the outside. They get to play. Plus, with all the exotic blitz packages that Brent Venables likes to throw out there, if you look up and you see Rondell Bothroyd, who has a proven track record in the ACC of getting in the backfield, doing tackles for loss, there you go. There you have it. You roll in R. Mason Thomas, who has been putting in work and staying in the film room. You got it right there. You bring in, like I said, PJ Adebaware, and this guy is going to have a light click at some point this season. You're going to see the flashes early in the season, but as you go through the season, just be patient with him, because the guy is still learning how to be who he is. He doesn't know he's Superman yet. We've made that comment before. And then, I just blanked out. defensive end, Trace Ford.
Yeah.
He's going to be a pass rush specialist also. So you throw out those guys. You have guys like Jonah Lalu, who's used to pulling out, from the outside linebacker spot. So if you could have him, on the inside with a pass rush mentality, there's a lot of capabilities. And if you let yourself go down a rabbit hole, you hear that top 25, top 40 defense. And that's what this team needs, because we haven't seen it since 08.
Yeah, we haven't seen that. God, we need this. We need this defensive line to show out. 15 years of just feels like purgatory. Yeah. I just want this defensive line to go out there and show out. I want them to go muscle everybody. I like the fact that we're over 300 on a regular basis with these defensive linemen, and I like the fact that we're here to muscle folks. Most of these players been in the system for a year. Those that haven't are being taught by their teammates on where to be, so it makes it even better when you have coaches on the field as well as coaches in the coaching booth. So that double duty is going to help a lot moving forward. These players will be better prepared and know how to get where they need to get and be able to do their thing. So, Coop, thanks for pulling up as usual. We're going to chop it up a lot more about Pride Media Days on the Sunday live stream. As y'all know, Sunday, 6 p.m., we always make the magic happen. The Discord is also in the link in the description below. We'd love for you to come in and just talk ball with us. It's growing. It ain't perfect, but it's growing, and we would love to have you all in there. So with that, we will chop it up with y'all, I don't know, probably about a day or two. Peace.